This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. Episode 188, recorded January 5th, 2019. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today we are going to be talking about 2018. We're making our picks for the best of the year. We're going to talk about some shows that didn't quite make our picks as well, but we're mainly going to be going through some categories and talking about what we're awarding specific things to. We've done this in the past, but we've kind of narrowed down. We used to have too many categories. We'd actually do written articles with all of them and then talk about some of them, and it was always just kind of a little messy. So this time we're just kind of focusing on doing it in the podcast. We cut down the number of categories so we could really kind of hone in on the bigger stuff. And so, yeah, we're going to kind of kick it off. We're going to talk about what we thought was the best and worst and most interesting of 2018. Mostly the best. So let's start off with best technical production. So this is something we've routinely given to shows like Westworld and Game of Thrones. We're talking about not necessarily the quality of the program, but of the actual production itself and like what went into the production. This year, Will and I ended up making the same choice, which isn't necessarily like, it's not the same thing as like, when we pick Westworld or Game of Thrones because of like the special effects and the sets and everything like that. This has to do more with like the way the episode itself was presented. So the episode we're talking about it's a special, like kind of put aside from the rest of the show, but it's Black Mirror and it's a special called Bandersnatch. And this was like a choose your own adventure, on Netflix. So you couldn't do it on, Roku or Fire TV or Chromecast or anything like that. You'd have to do it in front of a computer or something to play through it. But yeah.
Tablet or smartphone.
Yeah, or on a smartphone or tablet, yeah. But yeah, it's just kind of a full length, or even maybe longer than full length Black Mirror episode with just branching paths.
There's no official length.
Yeah, there's no official length, but I think my total playtime ended up in almost 2 hours, but I was able to explore multiple endings through that.
From my understanding, most people can finish it within 2 hours.
Yeah.
To get like the true ending. Even though, again, they like to say that there are no true endings, but there is at least one ending where credits roll and Netflix moves you on to the next.
There's some others where the credits roll too, but the one you're talking about in particular is the only one that jumped me to the next program and didn't give me an option to jump back to like a previous choice.
Right, exactly. Like everything else, it jumps you back to a previous choice. So that's how
it gives you the option at least to jump back,
officially, like there's no true ending because like I was reading an interview, they said, they didn't want to say like any ending was a true ending, but there is an ending that jumps you to the next episode and none of the other endings do that.
Yeah, it's pretty definitive.
Yeah, it's pretty definitive.
And it kind of just felt like the true ending even despite that, based on kind of like, it felt the most Black Mirror-ish kind of ending of all of them. And we're not going to go into detail about kind of all the storylines in the show because we're actually going to be talking about this specific episode next week, and that's where we're going to kind of go more.
We haven't seen all the storylines, so how can I didn't see.
But we're not even going to go into like the kind of general storyline or anything like that.
Well, we're kind of rambling though. Let's get back to why we picked this for.
Yes.
Technical is because of the nature of it's a choose your own adventure, and not just because it's choose your own adventure. Because you're like, oh, that's easy, right? That should be. What's so difficult about that? They had to film some extra stuff. Well, no, it's actually a lot more impressive than that because like. I know like FMV games, if you think back to Sega CD FMV games, like you would make a choice if something happened and there'd be like some buffering or there'd be a stutter or like it would switch to the proper scene. It'd be very jarring.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'd be quick, but it'd be jarring and you could tell like the switch happened with, the magic of this, right, is like it's smooth. Okay. Like you point out, there's a scene in like the beginning of the first choice that you make, besides like at the beginning where they're like teaching you like how it works. Okay, no, like the first real choice you make is like a choice between two cereals. And And the show never stops. The show never pauses. The choice pops up on the screen, and the show doesn't pause to wait for you to make a choice. There's a timer. You have a time limit, and everything keeps happening. Everything keeps moving, and you gotta make a choice. Nothing's gonna stop for you. So, and here's the impressive part. Here's the impressive part, because you make the choice, and your choice happens seamlessly. Nothing stops.
There's no noticeable cut. I mean, there are cuts in the episode, so that's probably how they did it. They hid the cuts, but they didn't. It's not like at the point of choice. Like they hid it, so like you don't even notice it. It just feels like it just keeps going.
Yeah. So I'm talking about the cereal example because it's the most clear cut, because it just keeps moving. So your dad asks you what cereal you want, and then you select it, and then he gives it to you, and this all happens. This all just happens without stopping or cutting or pausing or buffering. It's like, it's that smooth.
It remembers choices too, and that affects like other paths, because like based on the cereal you choose, like you actually end up seeing like a commercial for the cereal at another point, the one that you chose. There's also a part where you choose music. There's 2 different points where you choose like music to listen to, and both of those like go deeper than just like the next scene where you see them listening to music or something. One of them, like the first one where you just choose what you're going to listen to when you're like on the bus or something, like he references it later, like way down the line, like what he listens to when he's trying to focus or study or something, and it's the one you pick. And then later on there's a point where you actually like buy a CD or something, like you go to a store and you're going to buy a CD, and the actual one you choose like plays multiple times throughout the course of the episode, not just like in the next scene or not just like in some future scene.
And again, it's seamless. Like,
yes.
Yeah, because like you said, you pick your cereal at the very beginning of the episode, and then later on, after you've made a bunch of choices, after you've gotten deep into the narrative and you've made like half a dozen choices, you see a commercial for that cereal, it's still remembered what you picked.
Yes. And that this is kind of the magic of it. They did a lot to kind of make your choices feel much more seamless than what you would normally expect from something akin to this. Like they did a lot of work. They hid a lot of their work. They did a lot of suspension of disbelief, essentially. Like they kind of said, okay, this is where people expect to see, us to pause, and we cut and we wait, and then you make your choice and it buffers, like you said. And they did a lot to hide that. Obviously they have to do cuts and stuff because you're going to film multiple versions of a scene. You're going to have to cut, but they found ways to hide the cuts by like maybe after the time limit runs out, it continues on for a bit. Somebody makes a gesture, it cuts back to somebody, and that's where the transition happens. And so it's not at the immediate point at which you expect it. And because of that, it gets your suspension of disbelief, like it suspends your disbelief that you made this choice. You don't see the skeleton of this, you don't see the flow chart in front of you and go like, oh, I can see it now. I can see this path. Like it just feels more fluid. And that's important. It's like essential. Like it just seems like such a minor thing to say. Oh, you don't get a buffer. It just keeps going or something. It seems like such a small thing to say, but it makes a huge impact while you're watching and interacting with the story.
Like I was reading, so it's pretty damn impressive when you think about it. Like, it seems like the concept seems so simple on the face of it, but I was reading the interview, they actually had to invent completely new technology to do this.
Yes.
They spent 2 years developing the technology, getting all this done. They've actually had to delay the next season of Black Mirror for this movie.
Curses.
Yeah. Yeah. They actually like this movie like was so complex that they had to delay the next season to get this out. So in light of all that, I just thought like, how could anything else win this award? I mean, this is a technical achievement beyond what most shows do or, well, frankly need to do.
Mm-hmm.
so this was something unique, and that felt like should recognize it.
There have been some shows that would kind of tread the more traditional track for a Best Technical Production award. Shows like Westworld was on this year, for example, and that show's always impressive on a technical level. And then, Altered Carbon and stuff like that, like we didn't have Game of Thrones this year, but if it had been, that would be one. But this is just like a completely different thing. And that's what made it like stand out. It's not the production itself. It's not the way it's shot. It's not the locations they used. It's not the set design. It's not the special effects.
It's the technology that they developed to power the conceit, because like it works so well, and it's beyond anything that came before. Like even like interactive stuff, it's beyond that, because like somehow they've managed to make it seamless.
Yeah, exactly. It's just an impressive feat. There've been things that have tried, they've literally done it like the choose your own adventure way, where it's like the Clue movie, for example. Like there were parts where you could rewind or fast forward to get different endings and things like that, There was also, some board games that were tied to videos where you'd have to like pause it and rewind or fast forward or do things like that.
Right, exactly.
But this is like a whole other thing, and this isn't even the expected thing. This isn't even like, oh, well, yeah, obviously with digital, you're not going to have to fast forward and rewind it yourself. It'll do it itself. It goes beyond even what you would expect in that way. It does it in such a much more.
If it was just jumping itself to different scenes, you would know.
Yes. That's the thing, is that they hide the skeleton.
Yeah.
And they do it remarkably well. So that's our award we both gave to Best Technical Production. We're not going to talk, like I said, about the story and stuff, because we're going to do that next week. We're going to talk about some of the different paths.
And the paths and stories don't really have any, the fact that there are different paths, but the plot doesn't really have anything to do with this award. So
yeah, it doesn't have to do with the production itself.
Yeah.
It ties into the plot in some interesting ways, but that's not what we're discussing today. So next up, which usually pairs well with the technical production, is Best Artistic Production, where technical production is going to be talking about, like I said, in the case of this one, it's the technology for the actual interaction aspect, but typically it's been stuff like, set design and special effects, things like that, all the technical stuff, the stuff that costs money to do. But Best Artistic Production is more just about having creative people unleash something.
It's Best Artistic Production I guess I kind of think visually, like what was the most visually arresting?
Yes. And not because it's like an amazing special effect, but because it's like a clever...
Because like the artistry of it.
Yes, exactly. So that's the Best Artistic Production. It's valuing the art over the technology in this case. So sometimes those go hand in hand.
And again, like I just thought, how could it be anything but Legion? Legion, like say what you want. I thought Legion had a weaker set. I thought Legion had a weaker second season.
I think it had a lot of problems.
I thought it had a lot of problems, but its art direction is still top notch. It's on point.
Oh yeah, the musical bits they did, the dance sequence, also later on the Behind Blue Eyes like musical bit that they had, and
that was amazing.
Yeah, and it's just gorgeous, and it's done in such an amazing way, and yeah, you can't take away from Legion in that aspect. There's only one show that I felt competed with it, and that I almost picked, and that's Maniac, which is from the director of True Detective Season 1 that did this show on Netflix.
And sadly, I didn't watch that, so I didn't.
Yeah, it's very artistic, in an artistic direction, it's very close to Legion. It also has kind of like a weird kind of 70s aesthetic.
I got Legion vibes from like watching the trailer for that.
Yeah.
I should really get around to watching that. I just didn't in 2018.
I think that's a genuine competitor in this category against Legion. I think it's the only genuine competitor against Legion in this category. I'd still give it to Legion though, for some of the things it did. Like, Behind Blue Eyes, that whole thing, amazing, there was a lot I didn't like about Legion Season 2. There's aspects about the ending that I absolutely loathe, but the production, the artistry of the production cannot be faulted.
Right.
Next award, Best Writing. This one's always a hard one because it's such a general idea, best writing, but there's so many different kinds of writing, you know?
Yeah. What are we talking about? What do you mean? Like, I mean, there's so much that could qualify for that. I feel like that was a difficult one for me. I don't know about you, but I had to really think about best writing.
Yeah. So I'll let you go first with your pick because this is the first one where we differed.
Yeah. Right. So I picked what I picked. I picked American Vandal, and the reason I picked American Vandal, and it's also the reason I went with like another award. But the reason I picked American Vandal is because it's more clever than you would think on the face of it. Like it presents itself like this episode was entirely about shit, or this season was entirely about shit, and like the antagonist calling himself the Turd Burglar, and all the episode titles were like some like poop pun. And your first instinct is to think, yeah, this is stupid.
This is just crass comedy.
Yeah, this is just crass comedy. This is like, I don't know, fucking like not South Park, but this is like something on MTV.
This is like Brickleberry or
yeah, Brickleberry something. But you watch it and there is an intelligence, there's a heart to it, there's a deep and like there is like you end up like you get like these deep characters, you know, like you end up caring about people at the end of it, and you end up feeling like kind of melancholy about it all. Mm-hmm. Like there's a point where this is not a detriment, this is a strength. There is a point where you stop laughing and you start caring.
Yeah,
that is the magic of American Vandal. That is how amazing it is, and it's a shame that Netflix canceled it in its second season, which I felt I guess people will disagree, but I felt like second season was just about as strong as the first season.
I think it was better. I think season 2 was better than season 1.
Yeah, I really loved season 2. It's hard for me to quantify, but I just felt like it didn't miss a beat when really like season 2 should, like after season 1 you think how are they gonna pull this off again?
Yeah.
And they did it.
Yeah, they did it remarkably well, and even beyond the kind of the twist and the turn it takes from being kind of crass comedy into something more meaningful. Even besides that, American Vandal, and this was true in the first season as well, is remarkably good at its dialogue.
Yes,
like making it feel like really authentic. Like this is coming from kids. This is coming from high school kids. You know, being talked to on this, like in a way that like even real documentaries don't get right. Because they edit too much.
Right. Like, yeah, that's another thing. Like, you get like, this is coming from real high school kids. And you know how many shows about high school kids can't actually write high school kids?
Yeah.
Like you watch show, and like either like everybody is like super witty, or like everybody is like so incredibly worldly because they're kids. Like, you can tell like it's a bunch of like 30, 40 something people writing teenagers. But with American Vandal, like these kids act like real kids.
It just has an authenticity to it.
It just has an authenticity to it. Yeah.
So my pick is a little bit different, and it's Lodge 49. And so Lodge 49 is about a guy, he's kind of down on his luck, and he ends up finding his way into a secret society. When I say secret society, I don't mean like, you know, espionage and mystery. I'm talking, you know, like, or what do you call them? The Freemasons or something, you know, like it's like a club.
Freemasons don't run the country.
But it's like a club, and he ends up kind of involved in this club, and they kind of have like their little mythical influences, and there's all this stuff about like, oh, is this like fate? Is this destiny? Or is this just this guy finding this club? And there's always this kind of like aspect of magic realism to the story where you kind of don't know if something is actually fantastical or if it's just because of the lens of who you're seeing it through. You know, there's characters that are imbibing on the show, for example. So you don't know. There's a character that's kind of somewhat losing his mind in old age. So you don't know kind of like how much is them gone insane and how much is them actually, you know, like referencing things that are actually kind of arcane, you know?
Right.
So that's kind of like a big part of the show, but I think what really makes the show work, and it's a twist in the same way it is with American Vandal, where you go from comedy to something like more heartfelt. Well, with Lodge 49, it's like you're going from this kind of like almost mythical, like it almost kind of presents itself very much like the Big Lebowski kind of vibe to it. But there's these heartfelt moments that are just about middle class America, about what it means to be in middle class America and how depressing it is right now and how hard it is, and the struggles that people have, and you know, loss and things like that. And those are peppered throughout it, and they have these moments, they're almost like monologues where characters like talking, and it starts off with them talking like, oh, they're doing a toast and they're just saying something nice, and then it starts hitting at the truth of a matter, and it just keeps going, and it's kind of stunning to watch because you just kind of watch this character's kind of heart just kind of dissolving in front of you, and it's like fascinating, and it's really well done, and it's not done in an authentic way like American Vandal. It's done in like this stylistic way that's very different, but no less interesting. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't it being inauthentic does not hinder it. It's not going for that, you know? But yeah, it's just a really interesting show that I think a lot of people slept on. But yeah, I had to give it best writing. I was actually struggling between a few different choices on it, but I really wanted to give Lodge 49 something because it really impressed me, and I thought this was kind of like the best place I could really kind of give it a foot.
Nice.
So that's Lodge 49. Next up, we're going over Best Performer. So I'll start with my pick first, since Will went first last time here. My pick is Evan Rachel Wood as Dolores in Westworld. So Westworld kind of had a bit of a rocky season, and its second season there's a few things I didn't like. The character of Dolores, I really kind of didn't like throughout the season.
Yeah, Dolores.
But that has nothing to do with the performance.
Dolores was pretty hateful this season, right?
Yeah, that's how she was written, though. You know, like as far as how she was performed, I think it was like a masterclass in subtlety. Like Evan Rachel Wood was able to do so many little subtle things, like a tiny twist of like barely a smirk appearing on her face would convey so much in a scene. It was just masterfully put together. All these different kind of versions of her character, because you have what she's kind of programmed to be. You have what she's kind of starts off as when she starts kind of breaking through the fourth wall. And then you kind of have where she kind of starts ending up as this kind of revolutionary figure. So you have like these very different versions of this same character and these different parts in their life. Because Westworld's like all over the place, like in the chronology, you know? So you're seeing all these different points. And just, yeah, there's just these subtle moments where she goes from like robot to real, or she goes from like kindly, but in her programming to kind of, sinister, you know, like there's these little kind of micro touches, and I say micro touches because they're so small, they're so subtle, but they make huge differences in what her character is at that point, and you instantly cue in. It's like a tiny movement of a lip, and you pick up on it because it's so well done.
Yep, Evan Rachel Wood's performance in Westwood continues to be amazing. Westworld.
She might be good when she visits Westwood as well. I don't know.
Yeah. her performance in Westworld continues to be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now on to your pick for Best Performer.
Well, my pick for Best Performer was D'Arcy Carden for much the same reason that you picked Evan Rachel Wood, because she had a chance to stand out in an episode of The Good Place this season. The last episode that aired before this podcast. In which
she played almost all the characters on screen.
She played almost all the characters. And it's amazing because she had to play normal Janet. She also had to play another version of Janet in the office, the afterlife office place. So not only did she have to play Janet, she had to play a different version of Janet, and she had to play all the main characters who were turned into Janets themselves.
Yeah.
And she did
it so well too. Like you could pick up on exactly who she was portraying.
Exactly. Yeah. You could pick up like exactly who she was supposed to be in every scene. It was amazing performance. I was certainly impressed. That showed an incredible range.
Yes.
And I thought to me that was the most impressive performance of of 2018.
No lie, this was on my short list. So this was something I was heavily considering for the exact same episode that you're referring to, which was the episode Janet's.
Yes.
The plural. Yeah, just amazing performance. This is like a character that, like, when she first came in Good Place, she's very robotic, very stiff, but like in a funny way. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is kind of interesting character, but it's more about the ensemble and stuff. And this episode really let this actress break out as kind of her own, person and just really kind of show her chops in a pretty cool way. It's also cool that I'm seeing this actress popping up in all sorts of stuff now.
Yeah.
Like, she was completely off my radar, and now she was in Barry this year, which was really good, and she's just seeing her popping up in other things. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool, actually.
Next award is for Best Ensemble Cast, and I just referenced Ensemble Cast, so this is where it's not so much just a single performer, but it's about this cast and the way they work together, the chemistry they have, and just, you know, the depth of it before. We've given, I think both of us gave this before to Westworld. I think we might have given it to Game of Thrones before, for having the amazing ensemble cast, which is, you know, undeniable. They both do. I'm going to let Will go first this time because I went first last time. Yeah, so what's your pick for Best Ensemble Cast?
So I picked The Good Place. My runner-up was low, but I feel like The Good Place had the best ensemble cast because they work so well together. They play off each other so well. The Good Place is The Good Place because of its ensemble cast. Basically, like, and it's even written into, like, canon, right? Like, it's canon that Michael chose this group of people to bring together because of how they play off of each other, what they would make each other miserable. And he knew that, and that's why he picked these people. And yeah, it works. It works really well, and it's what makes The Good Place such a fantastic show. So that's why I picked The Good Place for Best Ensemble Cast.
The Good Place was one of the ones I was considering as well. I ended up giving it to, my pick was Preacher, which has always had a good ensemble cast, but I think they really nailed it this season. Not only with new cast members that were just really good and really just worked in there, but just even the existing cast members, like, they just did a better job of portraying the chemistry between them this year than they had previously. So, like, everything kind of came together in a really way. They're, like I said, interesting new characters that they brought in, like, you know, they brought in the devil in this season, so he's a character in it. They brought in the Angel of Death as well. They brought in a bunch of different people from this, like, vampire group that's like kind of making fun of, like, the Anne Rice style vampires. So they brought in, like, all these different characters and these different elements, and they're all excellent, all of them. But then there's a chemistry that was always good between, like, the three main cast members and then some of the extended cast, like the Saint of All Killers and other people like that. And they kind of doubled down and went further with that group of characters and just nailed it. I mean, it's to the point where you're even, like, enjoying the chemistry between, you know, the Saint of All Killers and Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
Hitler is a likable character to some extent in Preacher.
Yikes.
That's just how good of a job they did.
I'm not agreeing with you there.
I'm saying in the show. He's fun to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just amazing on all fronts. And it just, this season in particular, just really everything kind of came together in an amazing way for that group. So that's my pick, Preacher. Next up, this is another one where we made the same pick. So no worrying about who goes first, but this is for Best Showrunner. Previously we've given this award to Brian Fuller quite a few times, I believe. Both of us did for his work on Hannibal, and then I think we might have given it to him for American Gods as well.
I think we did, and then Brian Fuller proceeded to do nothing this year. So
yeah.
so we had to, like, really, like, redouble and, like, be like, oh crap, who we give this award to now?
Who do we give the award for Best Brian Fuller to?
Yeah, exactly.
So this time we couldn't give it to our typical favorite Brian Fuller. This time we're giving Best Showrunner to Michael Schur for The Good Place.
For Good Place. Yep. Again.
Michael Schur's been hitting it out of the park, though. It's not even just with us picking this as, like, a top one. That name has gone from being, like, something that only, like, big enthusiasts of his other shows have known to, like, a household name.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
and it's just, and this is on the third season of The Good Place, so it's not like he had that right from the get-go either. It's, he obviously had some success, as the primary showrunner for most of the seasons of The Office, the American Office. And then he also kicked off, Brooklyn Nine-Nine and was running that off and on. And he kicked off, a few other shows that he was really involved in, but it was The Good Place, I think, that just really kind of cemented him as brilliant.
Yeah.
Because this is where it went from being just like, oh, he's a really good comedy writer. He can write really good quirky characters and kind of work on the chemistry between these characters and stuff, to like, oh, he can like straight up go Lost.
Yeah, he
like,
can. Yeah, he can straight up go Lost. He can
straight up tell a serialized story. He can make a show about ethics be like the most entertaining thing on TV.
Yeah, it'd be like a show about ethics being like the funniest comedy on TV.
Yes, and so it's just amazing. He's had a phenomenal success.
You could give the name Jeremy Bearimy completely new meaning.
Yes. He just did an amazing job. And this isn't just us giving him this award. He's the star of TV in 2018, almost universally. If you read any press, he's the one that everyone's talking about right now. He just kind of like, he's always been there and he just kind of popped out big time.
Yeah.
This year. So yeah, best showrunner, Michael Schur for The Good Place.
Yep, absolutely. Agree.
Now for our next category, this is best antagonist. I'll go first since you went first last time. My pick for best protagonist is Alison Brie as Ruth Wilder in Glow.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I think she was good in the first season, but in this season, facing even more adversity, facing, problems with her friend that like went pretty harsh against her, and kind of the role of leadership that she ended up taking amongst the girls in Glow and in the group, and the kind of role that she ended up taking is this kind of like the mother figure of the entire cast of characters in a way, was really impressive, and she was able to pull it off in a really believable way with her performance. Alison Brie was. But yeah, she just became like a super likable and interesting character, and she was already kind of there in season 1, but in season 2, just much more so. So yeah.
Oh yeah, she was amazing in season 2. Like, I really loved her character in season 2. Like, that's definitely a candidate for me. And it might have been a shoo-in if something else didn't happen this year.
And the one you're about to mention was also on my short list. So we both had each other's picks on our short list.
Yeah, but something amazing happened this year, and that was Cobra Kai on YouTube, which I had initially kind of written off as like,
I expected that to be so good.
Yeah, I thought it would just like be like some silly, like I expected it to be like a parody of the Karate Kid.
Well, it's funny because it's on YouTube, and I expected it to be like a YouTube like clip.
Yeah,
this will be a fun little YouTube like short or something.
Yeah, I expected it to be YouTube. Like, they got these old guys back from this old movie, and they're
to make a college humor sketch together.
To make a college humor sketch about the Karate Kid. That's what I literally thought it was going to be. But this turned out to be like actually like awesome. Like this was legit. And one of the best parts about it was the protagonist, Johnny Lawrence, who, as we all remember, he was the punk kid who you wanted to see get the shit kicked out of him at the end of the first Karate Kid. And
he snotty, blonde, bully piece of shit from Karate Kid that everybody hated.
And yeah, exactly. And he takes such a turn in this from that one-dimensional character to like this fully realized like person, like we catch up with him and he's adult and he's still like sore about losing in the karate tournament like years ago. His life is shitty. He's got a pretty shitty life, like he loses his job at the beginning. And what's great about him is like, it's like, we see him like, he becomes a mentor to this kid and we see him like we see him like kind of turn into a better person as the season goes on, because he takes this kid under his wing, and he reopens the dojo and he tries to do it right this time, like not do things the way like his old sensei did, you know.
He's still making mistakes, which is making him an even better character.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he still fucks up because like he doesn't really know what he's doing in a sense. Like he knows karate, he knows how to do karate, but he doesn't know how to teach kids. You know, you know,
and he is still an asshole.
And he is still an asshole. He still has. It's not like he's getting two shoes off. He still does have an edge to him, but he's not going out of his way to like try and be an asshole to people. Like it's more like he's an asshole because he wants people to leave him alone.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, he's that type of character, and I just thought it was an amazing performance and a great character, a great show. I was really impressed.
Yeah, it was. This is the surprise show of the year. Like this is like I was always going to watch it and check it out because I liked the Karate Kid as a kid, you know. So I'm like, of course I'm going to check this out. But man, I did not expect to be just completely bowled over and addicted in the way I was. It turned out to be a great show, and he led the show, and he was the reason. He was everything that made the show great.
Right.
And I cannot wait for season 2. I can't wait to see more of his character.
Absolutely.
That's William Zabka who played the role, and just marvelous. Just marvelous.
Hey, yep. I couldn't agree more. Like, I was impressed. Like, that was way better than I was expecting it to be.
Next category is, if we're gonna have a best protagonist, stands to reason we have to have an antagonist. So that's our next category, is best antagonist. Will, you went last, so you get to go first this round. Who is your best antagonist?
I almost went with Bullseye from Daredevil, but then I thought, Wilson Fisk, actually, the Kingpin, is a lot more interesting because he's a master manipulator. Like you see like all the subtle manipulations he does, like how he manipulates the FBI to take over. And also you got to see some of his personal character too, like his affection for like his wife, Vanessa, which seems to be what's driving him. Like that in First for Power, but we do know like his affection for Vanessa is real. It's probably the only part of him that's real.
Mm-hmm.
And Vincent D'Onofrio's performance is amazing. It's really Vincent D'Onofrio's performance that brings this character to life, that makes this character so interesting to me.
And they went full Kingpin finally.
And they went full Kingpin, and you even got to see him like throw down in like the last episode of the series, which was really cool to see. And the way like he took control of the FBI. He presented like the most dangerous villain on television this year. So I just thought, how could I not pick him for best antagonist?
Yeah, he was a great antagonist. D'Onofrio was always great as Kingpin, as Wilson Fisk. This season, though, he went full Kingpin. Like, he made the role so much his that, like, I can no longer envision, not even just seeing, but even hearing any other actor portraying this role anymore.
Right.
Like, it's he just owned it so thoroughly that he ruined it for everybody else.
Right. If Marvel ever uses that character again, they need to get D'Onofrio.
Yeah, it's like he just nailed it so much. He was on my short list, but my list ended up, as your list ended up having 2 people from Daredevil on it, my list had like 6 people from Preacher on it. I mean, like I said, they introduced the devil in this season. He was on my list as one of the characters that, there's
I couldn't mine from that because I didn't watch.
Yeah. Jesse's grandmother was like this horrifying villain in it. She was on my list. A couple of her henchmen. She had one of these henchmen named Jody, the character, who was also on my short list. So I had like all these people, but I ended up giving it to somebody who wasn't even necessarily the most threatening character in the season, but who was just hilarious in his evil. His brand of evil was just hilarious. And that ended up being what I ended up giving it to, which is the actor Pip Torrens. For his role has hair, cloth helmet, Star in Preacher, or just Hair Star, as he's commonly called. He's been on the show. He was on the show last season as well. He was in it briefly, I think, in the first season, like kind of cameo, like you just kind of saw him but didn't hear him do anything, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But he just really came into his own. He was hilarious and awesome in the second season. But in the third season, his personality traits just rang so clear in this way that they didn't even get a chance to in the second season just because there was so much else going on. And here they just took the time and said, no, we're going to give Pip Torrance some more screen time to really get the idiosyncrasies of his performance, you know? And they did it, and it was awesome. He's hilarious. He is threatening. I didn't give it to him for being a big threatening antagonist, but he is a big threatening antagonist. But man, he's just hilarious. He's just so interesting as a character because he seems kind of it's like he's a master planner who kind of knows everything that's going on, and at the same time seems completely oblivious to so much else, so many other things. Like a character basically is trying to show affection to him and is like, she's like, I could come with you too, or something, and he's like, why? Like in this like way that's like so dry, and it was hilarious. And it's just like the way he played with these other characters, it was just fascinating. So yeah, he made my pick for best antagonist.
Okay.
I really hope you watch Preacher one day.
I should. The way that you're raving about it.
Oh, it's so weird. It's so weird and wonderful. Next category, I'll go first on this one because you went first last time, is for most interesting character. Oddly enough, we ended up picking from the same show.
Yes.
And yours was on my short list as well, by the way, I have to say.
Okay.
I ended up giving it to...
It's the first time we picked from the same show, but we didn't pick the same character.
Yeah. I ended up giving it to the actor Travis Tote for his portrayal as Kevin McClane, or Shitstain McClane, in American Vandal, in its second season.
And again, he was on my short list too. Like, he was the first one I thought about, but then I was like, oh shit, no, like this other character was actually more impressive.
Kevin McClane was, I had mentioned Preacher being wonderfully weird. Well, that's what Kevin McClane is in American Vandal. He is just the weird guy that everybody knew in school, that like kind of, you know, he's smart and there's things to like about him, but at the same time, there's just this, it's like this X factor, but instead of like the X factor that makes him a star, it's the X factor that makes him
a weirdo.
You know, yeah, a weirdo that makes him somebody that everybody else just kind of makes fun of or doesn't take seriously, you know? So he kind of has this like negative reverse X factor, basically. And just him talking about teas and his obsession with the teas and just his, in general, like the cadence of his voice and the way he talks. Everything about him. He kind of like, in some ways, he kind of channels a bit of a, God, what's the actor's name? He played Lex Luthor in the, DC.
Oh, Jesse Eisenberg?
Yeah, he kind of like channels a little bit of Jesse Eisenberg in there, a little bit of that awkwardness from that, but he's got his whole own touch to it too. And yeah, his character just ended up becoming really fascinating to me. Especially with the twist at the end and kind of, there's a point where you start to realize why everybody did certain things, and he kind of becomes the lone figure that did it for different reasons than everybody else. And it's tragic and it's sad, and yet he kind of like takes responsibility and comes back from it in a way that was really kind of inspiring at the end, I thought. So I really liked Travis Tope as Kevin McClane, Shitstain McClane.
Yeah, definitely a good character. I picked DeMarcus Tillman for my most interesting character, and I thought what made DeMarcus interesting because, and again, it ties back into why I chose American Vandal for best writing, because this shows the quality of the writing that we're dealing with perfectly, I think.
Yes.
Is that DeMarcus shows up and immediately he's vapid. You know, there doesn't seem to be much beyond the surface. He's a popular, you know, he's a popular jock on the basketball team. Everybody in school loves him. He doesn't seem to be that complex. He kind of just
gets away with murder, basically.
He seems to revel in just being like the star jock, you know, big man on campus, you know, type. And there doesn't seem to be much to him, but then as American Vandal so brilliantly does, they start to peel back the layers, and you find out that in reality he is actually a tragic character. He is actually a very tragic character, because we find out that even though he's surrounded by admirers, even though he seems to have all this, he's really extremely lonely and isolated. He doesn't feel like he has any real friends or any people who really understands him, and the sad thing is that that's probably true. And we see, like, he ends up being, like, a really complex person. He has actual feelings, like his baller persona. Is just him, like, trying to mask his insecurities.
Also trying to live up to expectations.
And also live up to expectations, and I just thought that was really interesting. And I thought that made him one of the most interesting characters on the show, because it's like, yeah, damn, And again, that's how that's how American Vandal gets you to care. It's because by peeling back the layers, by giving these characters, like, this sort of depth, and making you, and recontextualizing them in a different light. And to where you're like, oh damn, like, wow. And so, yeah, and that's what makes DeMarcus, like, the most interesting character for me.
Yes. He was definitely, like you said, Kevin McClane was on your short list. DeMarcus was on mine as well. When I was thinking of most interesting characters, most of the characters on my short list, I only had, like, maybe 3 on my short list, and like I said, the 2 of those from American Vandal, which really speaks to how well they make characters. That when we're both talking about most interesting characters, American Vandal had 2 pop up on both of our lists, both of our short lists. And both of them won on both lists, like each 2 separate ones from the same show. That's impressive.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, that I was surprised when I went back. I looked at your list and I saw you picked Kevin McClane, and I was like, whoa, okay, that is impressive.
So next category up, you get to go first this time. It's for best scene.
Best scene. Oh yeah. I had a hard time thinking of, like, all the great scenes. So I just kind of, this might just be like a case of recency bias. Definitely. It's definitely a case of recency bias. But it was the scene in Bandersnatch, and we'll talk about this more in depth next week. But it's a scene where, like, you get a choice where she brings up, like, action, or she brings up, like, you want some action.
His therapist, yeah. So
his therapist.
If this was a TV show, or if this was a form of entertainment, she says, and this is her quote, she says, "Wouldn't you want a little more action if you were watching this on the telly?"
And then you get to say yeah or fuck yeah. I chose fuck yeah, and, like, then the most amazing thing happens, because they start, like, kung fu fighting in a therapy room, and I know I've read online that people have seen the scene, like, most people, like, hate it because it completely breaks the tone of the episode. It comes out of nowhere, and it is jarring, but that's exactly why I picked it, because it is jarring, it is memorable. I was laughing my freaking ass off.
I think there is no problem with having a scene that breaks everything as far as tone of the show in something like this, where it's interactive, where it's completely optional. I mean, when you get to the point where she asks the question, or you don't have the choice. But to even get to that branch, you have to make a bit of a cheeky choice.
Yeah.
There's a point where he's, like, sitting in front of a computer, and he's thinking that somebody's controlling him, and he's kind of calling out to the heavens, saying, "Give me a sign. Who's
controlling me?"
And one of the options is clearly a joke. It's the Netflix logo.
Yeah. One of the options
clearly a joke, because this is a show that takes place in, like, the 80s,
Yeah. One of the options is you literally get to tell him who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's clearly a joke, and if you don't want to sully the integrity of the production and the image of it, then you're not gonna pick the joke. And if you don't pick the joke, you never get that scene.
Right. Like, at that point, I was expecting something jokey to happen, and it happened, and it was amazing, and I'm sorry, but, like, I do agree with you that I feel like there's room for those kinds of things to happen in this, because, again, like, because it's a bit of fuckery, right? It is like fucking. It's not just fucking with the character itself, which it is fucking with the character, but it's also fucking with you.
Yeah.
Because it, like, as the viewer, as a person in control, like, when this stuff, it betrays all of your expectations as well. Like, that's what makes it great, in my opinion. That's what made it so memorable. Like, because I was not expecting that at all. I was blown away. So that's why I picked it.
Yep. It's a great scene. Very interesting. And kind of, you said recency bias, but I mean, you can't really help it. The Bandersnatch came out days before we were doing our list.
Right. Exactly.
So you can't help to be impressed by something that's genuinely good and have it affect you in that way. So my pick for best scene goes to something we've referenced many times throughout this, as we've been talking about American Vandal. We keep talking about there being this turning point in which things go from being kind of crass and funny in that way to being much more serious. And this happens in an episode, particularly with this title, but it kind of happens very quickly and abruptly, and then it expands upon afterwards. So when I say scene, I'm talking about the exact instance in which it happened, which is in, I think it's the last or second to last episode of the season, titled The Dump. And that's the scene name I gave it to, is The Dump. And there's a part before this happens in which the turd burglar is about to be exposed. And for some reason, they warn him that he's going to be exposed. The documentarians, they warn him.
Yeah.
And so he says, okay, well, since I'm fucked anyways, I'm going to unleash my revenge now or something. And he sends out a message to everybody warning them that the dump's coming. They evacuate the schools. They think there's going to be this other shit thing. They're like, the dump is like shit going to be falling from the sky. What's going to be happening? What's clever here is that they tapped into something that's really been happening. I mean, most famously with the iCloud incident that, happened with a bunch of celebrity pictures. He had all this personal information, blackmail material that he'd gotten from all these people.
Yeah, he had been blackmailing people like this whole time, so he has like all this personal information.
Pictures, chat transcripts, embarrassing stuff about all these different people, and he releases it all. And it's like a moment where you're kind of like, it's setting up the expectation of like, oh, what kind of gross, crass thing is he going to do now? And it's like, no, it turns into something much more horrifying than poo, which is, this is like, he's fucking with people's lives at this point. It's not like a gag anymore. This is like seriously ruining lives at this point. And that's what made it really interesting too. And this is how it elevates over season 1, I think. Because in season 1, it was like the whole dick mystery thing. I mean, technically it was a crime, but it wasn't really that big of a deal. And you get to the kind of like the heart of the story, and that makes it interesting, and it's a compelling mystery. But here you have somebody committing like a straight up felony. Like, somebody doing something that's a legitimately horrifying crime.
Right.
And he does this right at the end here. And things that you had been seeing throughout the season are recontextualized. Everything changes because of this. Like the entire mood of the show changes at this point. And it's remarkable. It's amazing. And, like I said, we've talked about it several times as we've talked about, our most interesting characters and best writing for you on there and all these different things. We've talked about this scene. We've referenced this shift. And that's why I put it as my favorite scene. It's the best scene of 2018.
Nice.
So, our next category is Best New Series. I'll go first since you went first last time.
Wait. Best New Series. We're skipping some categories.
Oh, I rearranged it a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry, I'm not skipping. I just rearranged it a little bit.
I was gonna, okay, I just felt like I should, just in case. Okay.
Yeah, I thought we should put Best Comedy and Best Drama last, like an award show would.
Yeah.
So I moved them around a little.
So we're doing Best New Series and Best Returning Ongoing Series?
Yeah, and then comedy and then drama. I just moved those two groups.
Oh, okay. So with the confusion out of the way, okay, Best New Series.
Okay, so my pick for Best New Series is Cobra Kai. I did not expect this to be the amazing show it was.
That was definitely on my short list.
Yeah, it turned out to be amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I cannot wait for it to come back. I bought a month of, I had already used a free subscription like way back before YouTube Premium was anything actually worth getting, because it was a free subscription. So when this came out, I actually bought a month of this just for this show.
Probably a month of that, but then I hear like YouTube is getting rid of YouTube Premium now, and
no, it's still around at least for a while.
No, I read like an article that they are like discontinuing it.
I don't know. All I know is I'm going to end up getting another month because they have a show coming out this month called Wayne that looks really good. That's from like the writers of Deadpool.
But anyway, whatever money I have to throw at whoever to watch season 2 of Cobra Kai, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to as well. Cobra Kai completely made me take YouTube Premium seriously.
Yeah.
Like all by itself. Like this wasn't like a joint effort with it and other shows. No, this is the only thing. When this came out, this was the only thing worth paying for on YouTube Premium. And it was worth paying for all on its own. And yeah, I mean, CBS couldn't do it even with a cheaper price of entry. They couldn't do it with Star Trek Discovery. YouTube Premium did it right off the bat with Cobra Kai. And man, they just nailed it. I love that show. Cannot wait for a second season on that series. The surprise hit of the year for me and best new show for me.
So my pick was The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I thought this was, first of all, let me preface, I think Riverdale was promising, but ultimately a fail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think we both talked about like the first episode of Riverdale on the podcast before.
We did.
And we were both really excited for it, and then both of us fell off hard.
Yeah, I fell off hard. I thought Sabrina was like really good. This, like, for first season, like it was really smart. It was scary. Has a lot of good actors in it.
It was dark.
It was really dark. Yeah, it was really dark. I was impressed. I was like, okay, yeah, this is good. If they continue doing what they're doing, it's going to continue to be a good show, I think. If they veer off into like Riverdale land or whatever, then they'll probably start to suck. But so far, like, yeah, it was really good.
It's taken us through a whole season and we're still in, so that's better than Riverdale already.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, yeah, this is good. This is a really solid first season for Sabrina. I'm looking forward to seeing some more.
Yes, I feel the same way. This was also on my short list. I was considering this one as well. Great new show. Yeah. Next up, Will's going to go first on this category, which is the best returning / ongoing series.
And I picked Glow because I felt bad because I passed it up for so many other categories I could have won in. Like, I was on my short list for best ensemble, definitely. I was on my short list for, best protagonist. Didn't get it. So I thought, I genuinely, this was a great show. This is a great show. And it deserves, I thought, damn it deserves at least some recognition. So I put it in the best returning series because I felt season 2 was actually stronger than season 1.
Oh yeah, easily, yeah. I think.
I felt like it was, easily better. There was more drama, there was more wrestling. And again, what I love about this show is it doesn't try to milk the drama for all it's worth. It lets the drama happen and resolve itself, like, kind of naturally. Which is refreshing when you think about it, because most shows on TV like try to be too dramatic, and
they overstate the stakes, and
they overstate the stakes, and I thought, season 2 had, like you mentioned before, when you talked about Ruth, there's the drama between, like, Ruth and her best friend. Her best friend, like, we saw, like, she got, like, even, more jealous and angry at Ruth this season to the point of intentionally, like, breaking her leg in the ring. There was moments with, like, Sam, he was great. Just a great show. I'm glad it came back for a second season. I'm glad it's getting a third season. I tell you that.
I did give Glow, at least I gave it best protagonist, but I felt similarly to you in that, like, there's a lot of categories where I was like, Glow was on the short list and didn't get it. And like, I had it on my short list for ensemble cast, for example, and I didn't give it to it. So yeah, I could totally see that. It is a good show. It's a good returning show, and it's a show that didn't hit the sophomore slump, that came back for a second season and exceeded where it had been before, which is, not that common. I mean, it's uncommon enough that most times season 2s aren't good, and that's where the term sophomore slump is from.
Right, exactly.
And to break that is not an insignificant achievement. So there's a lot to say in Glow's favor for that alone, and for being able to do that. So yeah, Glow was something that I really considered for my best returning ongoing series, as well as a lot of other categories. If we had a best episode instead of just best scene, I probably would have given it to the one Glow episode that was like an actual episode of Glow.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
But as scene, I couldn't pick out like one scene necessarily that was stronger than the others. But if we had a best episode one, that very well might have taken it as well. So yeah, my pick though for best returning ongoing series is, and it's maybe getting a little boring for us to say just because we're giving it so many awards and stuff. It's The Good Place.
See, and
continues to kick ass every season.
And I agree with you, but again, it is for the same reasons. Is because when I got to best returning series, I had already given The Good Place so many awards. I didn't give Glow a single award, so I thought I should really switch it up and give it to something that was equally excellent that I didn't recognize previously. So that was my reasoning why I didn't give it to Good Place. Otherwise, yeah, Good Place definitely was on the short list.
Speaking of Good Place and dominating our awards list, our next award is another unanimous choice here, and it's for best comedy, and we both picked The Good Place. It's hard to compete with The Good Place.
Like I said, again, and again, it's kind of redundant. As the best returning series, The Good Place, best comedy, The Good Place. I didn't want to say The Good Place 1,000 times.
Yeah, but it's hard. I was seriously considering changing ones on there too, but then there's also that little niggling voice in the back of your head that goes, yeah, but it kind of deserves it, at the same time. Exactly. It's kind of boring to say it over and over again, but it deserves it.
Yeah, no, it definitely deserves it. And I also picked it for best comedy because, legit could not think of a better comedy this year. I mean, no other comedy did Jeremy bear me. Yeah. No other comedy did the Janet's episode.
Oh God, or the one where Chidi broke down.
Chidi had a breakdown. Yeah, that was in Jeremy Bear Me. Same episode.
Oh God, it's such a good episode. Yeah. I mean, jeez, that's oh man, and it's not the difference is this isn't a case of where the third season everything finally came into its own and it really surpassed its own limitations. It's this show's been good every season.
Yeah, this show's been good every season, and in fact, arguably, you can even argue season 3 was the weakest season comparatively because most of the first half, what aired up till now, took place on Earth, which people were actually kind of complaining about online. If you read all the comments online, people are kind of upset about that.
There were parts that went a bit slow, except the Jacksonville episode. That was just classic.
Now, even saying this is the weakest season of The Good Place, it's still amazing.
Yeah, it's just an amazing show, and it deserves all the credit it's getting, not just from us, but from critics all over the place that are going crazy over The Good Place and have been. So it deserves every bit of the praise it gets.
So while I could legitimately give best returning series to Glow, I couldn't legitimately give best new comedy to best comedy to anything else. I feel like.
So for best drama, I'm going first because you went first last time. Besides comedy, which we tied on, so we did the same one for. But my pick for best drama was The Americans. This is something I had actually put off for months and months and months. It's just been sitting on my DVR. I just kind of wasn't in the mood for a kind of a slow burn espionage story. And I know it's a great show. I knew it was great. I just wasn't just in the mood for it. And finally, I said, you know what? I'm gonna march through these last episodes, just maybe a couple weeks ago. And so I started burning through the last episodes of The Americans. This is the final season. This is this conclusion of the whole series. And it's amazing. I mean, it almost took over a bunch of categories for me. It almost took over best writing. It almost took over best performance. There's so many things that I'm God, I kind of just want to give it all to The Americans. for what they pulled off in their last season. Because, you know, as much as I was not wanting to go in because I wasn't in the mood for that kind of story, once you're in it, once you're like part of it, once you're in that story and you're experiencing it, it's phenomenally done. It's just amazing. Just the performances, the writing, everything's so good, and it just all came together. And it's nice to see a show come to a strong and worthy conclusion. It just did. It came to a great conclusion. Everything kind of felt right. There's a lot of things I was kind of dreading about, like how it would end, because I'm like, oh, they have to do it kind of this way, but I'm not going to like that. And they kind of found a different way to do it that made a lot of sense, and it just a lot of stuff worked so well on it. So yeah, that was my pick for best drama, The Americans.
My pick was Daredevil. Now, it's no secret I'm a big Marvel nut, but I don't think most of the Marvel Netflix shows would make my best drama, even in a year like this. I enjoy them, but Daredevil, for me, it's on another level. And I was a fan since the first season. I thought the first season was amazing. Second season was mixed. The Punisher stuff was incredible, but then when they started talking about the hand, it was like, oh god, what are you doing? But this was on another level. I thought this was the best season of Daredevil of all of them. And I thought, and I'd even go as far as like, of all the Netflix Marvel shows, this was the best season out of all of them. I thought this was like on another level. There's so much going on. There's Vincent D'Onofrio as just killing it as the Kingpin. Just being like really badass villain. Matt Murdock, being a lot more complex, more conflicted this season. Sort of like, losing, his whole losing faith, and kind of like retreating into his vigilante persona.
Back with the lo-fi costume, which I really enjoy.
back to the lo-fi costume, because like he's like, well, Daredevil's dead. Like, like that guy's dead. Matt Murdock's dead. Daredevil's dead. Now he's like black costume Daredevil. Cause he's all broody. Bullseye was awesome. I thought Bullseye was awesome. I thought this was a fantastic, very well done. I like that they didn't like end it on like some cliffhanger, seeing as the show got canceled.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say both our picks for best drama like ended this year too.
Yeah, that's true. Funny enough, best drama canceled. No. Okay. but yeah, like it ends on a good ending, I thought. There was like a stinger for like the future, but like again, stingers you can ignore. They're not cliffhangers, so you can like be like, okay, well that's not happening, but that's fine. Yeah, so I was really impressed with Daredevil. I was not surprised when they canceled it, but I was certainly saddened because
it was always the thing where it was like a 50-50 shot, basically. Like we knew Luke Cage and Iron Fist had been canceled, and the issue was, are they cleaning house of all the Netflix stuff, or is it just because both of those suffered so much? And then when Daredevil was canceled, it was like, okay, now we know. Like it just became definitively clear.
You're killing off one of your best shows in its prime. Of course, they did the same thing for American Vandal. Rip Netflix,
Hey, and we got Punisher season 2 coming up in like 2 weeks, and that show is almost surely going to be canceled, like right after it debuts as well. They're gonna let it debut and then they're gonna cancel it too. We kind of the writing's on the wall. Once Daredevil was canceled, it was like that speaks a lot for it, because when Iron Fist and Luke Cage were canceled, it was like, okay, this could just be that they were canceled because they weren't doing so hot, or it could be because of what's going on in the politics right now between Netflix and Disney. And then Daredevil was coming up, and it was like, okay, once Daredevil's out, or season 3 is out, and once we find out if it was picked up or renewed, that's going to give us a definitive answer, and it did.
Right.
So, I mean, that speaks to how much stronger Daredevil was than its compatriots in that project, in that little Marvel Netflix project, that like it became the defining, like, yes, we know 100% for sure what this means just because of what happened with Daredevil.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so that's the end of our top categories. Besides that, we had some other kind of shows that we thought were worth noting. These aren't necessarily honorable mentions. In some cases, they could be. In other cases, it's just kind of interesting aspects of television in this year.
That's just what caught our attention throughout the year.
Yeah. So one of the ones, this was on my list, it was going to be my winner for best technical production until I saw Black Mirror Bandersnatch, and that snatched it away.
Until Charlie Brooker made you his bitch.
Yeah. And that is Altered Carbon. And Altered Carbon did a fantastic job of creating this kind of futuristic world that was just so vibrant and so real and just so detailed, so Blade Runner in so many ways. And I didn't even get to see it in HDR, but just watching it alone, I'm like, God, this show, because that was when Netflix was making their big push for HDR. I'm like, this show's got to look stunning in HDR. And pretty much everybody who's seen it there has said it is. So yeah, this was going to be my pick for best technical production. A lot of people are kind of mixed on it. A lot of people didn't like the show itself. I did, but even the people that didn't like it, all seem to kind of agree that what it pulled off on a technical level, what the production pulled off was.
I agree that the technical production is incredible.
Yeah. Even people that hated the show are like, oh yeah, the show sucks, but if you got a new HDR TV.
Yeah. Anyway, watch it for the eye candy.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring that up just kind of as a kind of an honorable mention in a sense there, because it got booted off the list at the last second. The next one I want to put on there is Sally Forever. We had talked about no show competing for comedy with The Good Place. I'd say if anyone came close for me, it was Sally Forever. And I didn't start watching this until, and it didn't even come out until towards the end of the year, but I didn't even start watching it until this year, in over New Year's, basically. I was watching it on New Year's Eve. I was watching it on New Year's Day. But Sally Forever, it's a British show. It's about a woman who's kind of unsatisfied with her life, and she decides that she's going to pursue a lesbian relationship. She ends up becoming attracted to a woman that she sees on the bus. She kind of flirts with her, gets involved in that, and just kind of decides to just, upend the rest of her regular life and go this way. And that sounds like, oh yeah, okay, I guess I can see where the story goes from there. That's not at all what it is. This show is got aspects of slapstick. It's got aspects of cringe comedy. It's just all over the place. The characters are weird as fucking hell. In iconic ways. You just watch it and you're just like, oh my God, there's crass humor in this that goes way further than you would expect, especially knowing it's a British series. You're like, oh, I can't believe they just did a scene where a guy just shit on her chest or something, literally, this is it's a show that just kind of had no bounds, with what it was doing that way. And if you're in the mood for something that's just kind of a bit on the extreme side and cringy and just a good British comedy in that sense, but just on a super cringy, super crass level, check out Sally Forever. It aired on HBO just recently. So if you have the app or on demand, you should be able to check it out.
Nice.
Another one is one we did a whole podcast episode about, and that's Disenchantment. Disenchantment being the most recent series from Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons and Futurama. I think Will and I both kind of agreed that this was a show that as it started, we were both kind of not really sold on it. We were excited for the show coming up. Then we watched the show and we're kind of you watch the first couple episodes, you're kind of something's off. It just doesn't kind of quite feel right. It slowly starts coming into its own throughout the season. And it's not even until the very end of the first season where you're kind of oh shit, I'm out of episodes. Where's the next episode? It's a kind of a weird experience because the whole time you're watching it at the beginning, it's it's almost like you're marking down all the flaws. You're oh yeah, they fucked up this doesn't work. Why did they do this? This doesn't really work. This is a missed opportunity here. And then by the end, you're I want more episodes. Where's the more episodes? So it kind of has a quick turn on it. What did you think?
Disenchantment, I thought, at first I thought, the pundits were right. I thought, this is disappointing. This isn't, as witty or as clever as, Futurama or Simpsons in its prime, and I thought, But then I realized, like, as it went along, like the humor is more subtle, as weird as that is to say, because, like, there's a lot of non-subtle humor in it, too. But it became more about, like, the plot and the characters, than just, like, being, like, a joke a minute, you know? Mm-hmm. And once the plot starts to get going, I start to get, like, really invested into it and, like, really, like, I gotta see what happens next. And I thought it ended up being good. You know, not best of the year good, because, like, it was definitely a flawed first season. But I think if they could build on the momentum they had going from the end of, like, last season into next season, season 2 could very possibly make it onto 2019's list.
Next up, we have Roseanne / the Connors, because, as odd as it sounds to say, even though that both seasons have kind of concluded, I think, or actually, no, I think Connors has more still coming, but, all of that whole debacle all happened this year. Roseanne came on as a mid-season replacement, I believe in January or something early in the year. It came on, it did its run. It ended up, like, kind of, you know, doing exceptionally well ratings-wise. It got a lot of people talking about the idea of, like, a show that could, you know, cater to both the right wing and the left wing, and bring the idea of, like, bringing us together and kind of, like, handling kind of fairly, like, both sides of the issues, where both sides can get humor and joy from it, and kind of maybe even bring some people together. It kind of had, like, this whole thing to it where it's like, you know, everybody knew Roseanne Barr was kind of like this crazy right-wing nut job, but the rest of the cast, a lot of them aren't, you know. John Goodman's, you know, not, and Sarah Gilbert isn't, and so you had all these other people involved, and it kind of created this great balance, and it was exciting to see that. Then Roseanne Barr decided to go on Twitter.
Yeah, she decided to take some Ambien and go on Twitter. I was on Ambien. So basically, she just decided to be, like, a horrible racist and ruin everything for everybody.
Yeah, she destroyed the show that had just come back. Everything that she had just created with this show returning, just ruined.
I think that ended up being, like, the biggest story in television of the year.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just huge disaster. ABC ended up finally going, you know what? There's something we're salvaging here. And they brought back the Connors, and they did a story where they killed off Roseanne, and they continued the story of the family, but without her.
Well, they basically said, we don't actually want to cancel this show that was, like, super successful, just over Roseanne, so can we find a way to do it without her?
And they did, and it works too. The Connors is good as well. The Connors is a good show. Even though Roseanne was kind of like the right-wing representation, you still have some right-wing characters in the Connors, even if it's like John Goodman playing it, and he's not like a right-wing, total right-wing guy. Right. They still represent those concerns that come from the right-wing community.
It'd probably break my heart if John Goodman was on Twitter, like, posting MAGA memes.
Yeah. They did a good job of kind of retaining that balance and retaining, you know, humor kind of for both sides, and being a show that's about, you know, families sticking together even when they hate each other, or even when they have every reason to hate each other. And it ended up continuing on as a good show. And just, I say overall, both of the shows, the Roseanne Return and the Connors, did a remarkable job of just feeling like the show had never been off the air. Like, it's just, you tune back in and you feel like you're back at home with the Connors, you know? And it just, a lot of times, like, a show just feels a little off, like, when it comes back, you know? Like, oh, this is good, but it's a little different. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it does things that are weirder and more interesting. You could argue that for, like, Twin Peaks. People might argue either way, but, you could argue, like, oh yeah, Twin Peaks, but Twin Peaks Twin Peaks The Return didn't feel like Twin Peaks entirely.
No.
Like, it felt different.
It's Twin Peaks The Return is pretty much its own thing.
Yeah. And Roseanne and the Connors, just like I said, they feel like the show's never left the air. Like, it's just always been on. It's always been this level of, like, comfort food television, and it's back. And it just keeps going on, and you've lost nothing. And that's what the show feels like, and it's great for those reasons. So if you liked Roseanne, if you're worried about the Connors because Roseanne's gone now and thought, oh, that's Mirror. Just watch it. It all makes sense. Even the way they kill her off makes sense with shit that happened in the final season of Roseanne before she had her little ambient spell. Like, it even makes sense with the way the storyline was going there. Like, it all makes sense and it all kind of works. And, yeah, so Roseanne the Connors, wanted to bring that up. Also wanted to bring up 2 shows that also got canceled this year. Ash vs. Evil Dead had its final season this year after, I mean, it was kind of a long delayed final season. It had just been sitting on the shelf for a while. And so it wasn't looking good that they were going to bring it back. They finally put out the final season. It was good. But the most notable thing is when they were waiting to see if it was picked up, Bruce Campbell, sent out a message basically saying, you know, there's lots of projects that we've kind of talked about and addressed about doing maybe even a movie continuation that was going to bring back more of the Evil Dead stuff with the Ash character. And he said, but if this gets canceled, I'm just done. Like, you know, like, we're done with the character. We might do something else with other characters within that world or something, but I'm done with that character. I'm not going to do another movie. I'm not going to do, that's just it. And sadly, it was canceled. So it's kind of the end of an era. I was a huge Evil Dead, Army of Darkness fan. And, you know, I didn't think we were ever going to get something like Ash vs. Evil Dead or a continuation movie of any kind. So it was a nice little, like, it was a nice little gift that we were given with that series, and now it's sadly over. The other one we lost, sadly as well, was The Last Man on Earth, which is a very good high concept series that I just didn't think there was going to be a way they were going to be able to make that format or those ideas work, and yet it did in such a wonderful way. And unfortunately, it was canceled around the same time as Brooklyn Nine-Nine and stuff. Unfortunately, Fox owned the rights to it too, so it wasn't something that like NBC was able to just pick up, you know. It's gone, so that's sad. Also wanted to bring up Big Mouth just because that show, not canceled by the way, had an amazing second season after what was already a good first season. It just really excelled. And this year has had a lot of shows like that. We've mentioned some other ones where a second season of a show just really picked up the ball and scored. It just went with it, you know? And Big Mouth is another example of that, of a show that really just even excelled beyond where it was before in its second season.
Right.
Next up is The Magicians, and I only wanted to bring this up because The Magicians is a show we talk about a lot on this podcast.
We want to plug our upcoming Magician podcast.
We talk about it a lot on this podcast. We didn't give it any awards.
I know. I enjoyed season 4, or was it season 3?
It was season 3. I think what's coming up is season 4.
Yeah, I enjoyed season 3, but I don't think it wasn't like anything amazing to me.
Yeah.
So it didn't get any awards. Like I considered it, but it's nothing really stood out to me in season 3 of The Magicians.
It didn't really compete in the other categories. I mean, it was good all around. It didn't stand out in the way a lot of our category winners did.
Right, exactly. That was the issue. I had, hopefully season 4 comes out stronger than season 3. Well, we will have to see when that comes out, but yeah.
Coming up in a couple of weeks, and we are going to be covering it on this podcast again. So, yeah, so this is a little bit of a plug. Look up in the next couple of weeks for The Magicians. We have a few shows coming up. We're going to be talking about The Good Place again as it comes back. We're going to be talking about True Detective season 3. Punisher, we have to figure out where we're going to fit that into our schedule, but we'll talk about that for sure. But yeah, then I'm going to be,
I don't know if I could binge watch The Punisher like we normally do, because
we'll wait a bit. We'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I have full-time school and a job.
I think we'll wait for some of these other shows to end first, because
we
have a lot of shows we're discussing. We're going to be discussing The Good Place, The Magicians, and True Detective season 3 all at the same time. So it's going to be a little packed. So we'll talk. It might be a ways before we talk about Punisher, but we will eventually. But yeah. And then lastly, we want to talk a little bit about Castle Rock, which is a show that we covered the entirety of on episode to episode on this podcast. So if you've been listening to this podcast, you've heard us talk about it, and you've probably heard what the reason we're bringing it up. And that's because it's a show that we enjoyed that just kept getting better and better, and then just missed the landing.
Interesting. And yeah. And then It ended up being disappointing. Like, I had mixed feelings about it.
The penultimate episode was great.
Yeah, that got me really hyped for a finale, and then the finale came out, and I was like, oh, they really didn't know how to end this, did they?
Yeah.
It's so close in my mind. There's so much to like about Castle Rock. There's so much good things, and then on the flip side, there's so much that's disappointing about Castle Rock. That's frustrating, and that's also why I didn't get any awards, because I felt like, and to me, that's why I want to say, like, if there was an award for most disappointing show, it would be Castle Rock, because it was the one that I felt had, like, so much potential to get into the actual awards, but didn't. And I was just like, oh.
That finale just really hurt it. And it's sad because, like, if we just disregard the finale, like, if the finale hadn't aired this year and was airing next year, it very well might have taken some awards, but that finale sullied it so much for us that it ended up, like, you look back on it and think, like, oh, about these categories, and it taints it. You're like, no, don't really want to give it to that. And that's sadly just kind of where it ended up landing. I mean, there's a few categories where I think it could have taken things like best scene, it could have taken best new series, it could have taken best performance on some of it, maybe best protagonist even, and just, or best antagonist even. But it just didn't, it missed the ending, it missed its landing on the ending so bad. Like, it's not just that it didn't nail it right, it's like, it just completely dropped the ball on the ending, like, just in a miserable way that just, like, it hurt the overall enjoyment of the series before it, which is hard to do. But they did it. It's an achievement, I guess.
Yeah, they did it. It's an achievement.
Achievement unlocked. Drop the ball. But yeah, so that's it kind of for our 2018, what we kind of were looking back for through the year. So now we have what's coming up in the week ahead. So this Friday, it's already passed. We're recording this on Saturday, on January 4th, 2019. You finally have a reason to subscribe to DC Universe. Young Justice Outsiders has hit the streaming service.
Nice.
So if you enjoyed the cartoon and you've been waiting for more of that, well, now you can watch it on DC Universe if you have that service. Also, Netflix got a show called Call My Agent this Friday. So
Call My Agent.
Then on Sunday, January 6th, 2019, tomorrow from when we're recording this, probably, I don't know, I might have this up on Sunday in time for it, but the 76th annual Golden Globe Awards are airing on NBC. So, you know, they do TV awards, so that's on our schedule of upcoming shows, just because they talk about TV shows. So if our awards aren't good enough for you, tune into the Golden Globe Awards and then come crawling back to us next year. We're so sorry we went to the Golden Globes. Oh God, it was so horrible. Then on Tuesday, January 8th, 2019, the History Channel is getting a show called Project Blue Book that's kind of like an alien conspiracy kind of show. Not like a documentary thing. It's not that, you know, what if I told you it was aliens meme? This is like an actual, like, X-Files-esque scripted.
It's got Littlefinger.
Yeah, Peter Baelish is in it. Adrian Quinn.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. I probably have that.
It's awesome because, like every time I see him, I think he's up to something.
What's he gonna do to the Starks this time?
Yeah.
Also, Good Trouble Comes to Freeform. This is like a sequel series to The Fosters. So if you like The Fosters on Freeform, Good Trouble's kind of like its sequel series. On Wednesday, January 9th, 2019, I'm Sorry comes back to True TV. It's a pretty funny comedy, worth checking out. You're the Worst comes to FXX, or back to FXX. That's a really good comedy series, and it's its final season, so that'll be exciting to check out for me. I'm looking forward to it. And then also Schooled debuts on ABC. That's like a sequel to The Goldbergs.
Oh, nice.
So the Goldbergs takes place in the 80s and School takes place like in the 90s.
Mm.
So, but I think the Goldbergs is still going, so that's kind of weird. But they're going to have like different times, you know, then they're going to do one that takes place in the 1870s.
Yeah. Ye old Goldbergs.
Yes. They're gonna have like a whole like convoluted timeline for them. Thursday, January 10th, 2019, Brooklyn Nine-Nine returns, this time on NBC instead of Fox. So I know a lot of people are really excited that series ended up getting picked up again. Just remember, if you had it set on your DVR to record on Fox, you gotta set it again, because now it's on NBC, not Fox. Also, Fam comes to CBS, looks kind of rather unremarkable. And a new series comes to Netflix, a foreign series called When Heroes Fly, that I don't know too terribly much about. And then lastly, on Friday, January 11th, 2019, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend returns to the CW to finish off its final season. Friends from College returns on Netflix. Future Man comes back for its second season on Hulu. That's another one weird and wonderful show. If you like my weird and wonderful picks like Preacher, check out Future Man on Hulu. That's for its second season. And Sex Education debuts on Netflix. That's Gillian Anderson. It's a British series. And Gillian Anderson is playing a British mom and sex therapist. And her son is in high school teaching other kids stuff about sex education. What was that?
He becomes a sex therapist.
Yeah, he kind of becomes an unofficial sex therapist for the kids at his school.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. And then Informer comes to Amazon Prime, another show that I just kind of added to the list based on updated information that I really know nothing about. So that's January 11th, 2019. That's the end of that week. So next week on the podcast, we're going to be talking about The Good Place again, because it's back. The Good Place is back on Thursday. I didn't put it on this list just because it's only been gone for like a week.
The best show of 2018.
Yeah, if you the show that won the most awards from us is back.
Because if we did like a best overall.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
But like I'm kind of glad that we don't actually have that category, because
we just have to give another award to The Good Place.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of boring.
Not the show, but just giving it nonstop awards.
Yeah, no, like just like a best show. Like I think it's more interesting the way we have set up with like best drama, best comedy.
Yeah, it gives a better chance too. Usually the funny thing is it gives a better chance to comedies to stand out, but this is a comedy that would be dominating.
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, so that's a good place coming back this week, and we're going to be talking about it on next week's podcast. So tune in for everyone's favorite afterlife ethics comedy as we discuss it. Also next week, as we've mentioned, we're going to be talking about Black Mirror's interactive episode Bandersnatch. They also won a few awards here, so we'll be talking about that as well. So if you're interested in that, I highly recommend checking out. Go to Netflix, check it. You have to do it like on a computer or a phone, a tablet. You can't do it on like a streaming TV box. You got to do it on a computer or a tablet, phone, something like that.
Or even like a smart TV.
I don't know if you can on a smart TV.
Yeah, you can.
I know you can't on like Apple TV or Chromecast or anything.
No,
like
but
that.
Apple TV's not a smart TV.
But it's even more advanced than a smart TV as far as what it's capable.
But it's not the capabilities that's stopping it. It's other things.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it working on anything else. So I don't know. You can check it out though and see if it works or not.
Okay.
But yeah, we're going to be talking about that. So definitely, if you want to kind of, be part of the conversation, I guess, and do that, you can check that out. And you can also email us at contact@thetotalscreen.com if you want to send in any questions about, either The Good Place or, Bandersnatch or what we talked about this week and what you think of our awards or anything. You can send them feedback, or you can just watch, Bandersnatch, play along with it, and then listen to our podcast and, listen to it on your drive to work and scream like, they don't understand it. They don't know shit, as you're listening to us talk about it. But until next week, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast, and the entire back backlog of this podcast is available on our YouTube channel.
And you could also check out my YouTube channel, Pixel Champion, as well as my Twitch channel, twitch.com/Pixel Champion. I will be talking about and streaming on Nintendo games, probably mostly like Nintendo Switch, but I want to leave it open to so I could do anything Nintendo, if I want to play an NES game, I can do that.
He's going to be playing CDI Zelda games on a Twitch channel.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to be live streaming all the CDI Zelda games from start to finish, so look forward to that.
Here's a spoiler, the season ends with him committing suicide.
No. That's supposed to be the surprise.
But yeah, so check out all of that, and yeah, tune into our site and get anything else on there. Send us email, like I said, contact@totalscreen.com, and we can read it on the podcast if you write in. So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best